This is how I spend the first decade of my life in this country. My high school weekends, my high school afternoons were spent making sure our quesillo was as thin as it could be. This takes time, it takes effort, and this is why we charge extra for quesillo at Guelaguetza. Hi everyone, I'm Bricia Lopez, and today we are making memelas. The memelas are the thing you eat for breakfast in Oaxaca 365 days a week. It is the thing my children love to get every time we go to Oaxaca, and it's super simple but full of flavor.
Bricia Lopez and her family run one of the best Oaxacan restaurants in the country. Her parents, Fernando Lopez and Maria Monterrubio, opened the restaurant nearly 30 years ago, and it's an LA institution now. Bricia and her family are known as mole royalty, and the moles that come from her mom's recipes or her grandmother's recipes, they're so delicious and for a lot of people in Los Angeles. You couldn't ask for more enthusiastic advocates of Oaxaca culture.
Restaurant life is very tough. To be in the heat every single day and get out and be tired. You're only gonna get 5 hours of sleep, and you're gonna do it all over again the next day. But I think for us and for those of us who continue on the restaurant life and the family legacy, for me anyway, or for my siblings, there was a bigger picture. Not only continuing the legacy that my father begun, but also an innate love for our culture, an innate love to continue championing Oaxacan culture in this not city, but I think now in the country. Second generation immigrant kids, they understand that there's so much more at stake. You know, my dad made a very successful career, but I also saw him at the very, very bottom where he had to declare bankruptcy. Our cars were repossessed and we lost our home. And it was really sad. When we bought the restaurant for my family, for my parents, we bought a restaurant that was 1 week away from bankruptcy with zero cash flow, with a lot of debt, a lot of problems, but it was honestly the best experience and the best school and the best teachings I could have experienced. I learned so much about life, about business, about people. Being able to tell our own stories is being able to teach other little brown girls that this is how we make our food and not allowing someone else to tell them.
When you're from Oaxaca, you kind of have a chip on your shoulder about like just people looking down on you in Mexico, you know, like, so you come here and you have that. We have to maintain our unity and our identity as, you know, Oaxacans in LA, and that duality of cultures, you know, because now we're like putting our own stamp on this.
We love to talk about our culture, and we love to feed people our food. There's nothing better than to change someone's perception of an entire culture. And to be able to do that is such a privilege. I gave up pleasing my parents a long time ago.
Guelaguetza means an offering. She sees it as her responsibility to share her culture, and you can see that joy in everything that she does, in her cooking, in the way that the whole family is involved in the restaurant and is sharing their culture with Los Angeles.
And I think that was step number one. And I think that if you are taking over a family's business, you have to get over pleasing your parents like right away. Growing up in a Mexican family with a very, very, very traditional father, the quintessential Mexican macho man as your father, you can like lose a little bit of who you are, your identity, because you are worried about pleasing, you know, both your mom and your dad all the time. But I think that I found myself while taking over the business. Once we were in there, we quickly realized that we needed to make it our own and that we needed to be fulfilled. We've launched many other businesses that we have so much fun, and you know, and now we're creating other brands, and it's fun for me. We've always had, in my opinion, the best michelada in LA. And one day, a friend of mine came in and asked to buy just the mix because he was having a party and he loved it so much. My brother and I just thought, we should just like keep bottling this and sell it to people. This is a long time ago. It's been a very long trajectory with this brand. And now my brother are full-time involved in that brand and in the business. We have our own warehouse, we make our own stuff, and we do it right. I want to make sure people have the best quality possible. So nobody makes our stuff, we make our own mix. We ball it ourselves. We run the warehouse. We run the production facility, and we distribute to different retail partners. It's just so fun. I think I just want to just keep doing fun things. I think I'm learning to embrace my LA girl inside that forever was very quiet, because I'm from Oaxaca and I felt like I couldn't express my LA. My gosh, I've lived here for over 25 years. Like, this is my home too, and I'm learning to embrace it. Memelas are essentially a thicker tortilla that we pinch around. Then we layer with asiento. We make our own asiento at Guelaguetza from scratch, which is basically almost like a pork belly reduction paste situation, just to add some fatness and texture. Then we lather black bean paste that has been grounded and refried with avocado leaves and chiles de árbol. And then we top it with Oaxaca cheese and a red salsa. But it's essentially one of those comforting foods that remind me of my childhood. This is something I started making every weekend now with my son. I think it's a great skill for him to have, and something that it can become normal for him, like it was normal for me growing up. So we're gonna do a couple. We're not gonna make one with an egg on top, but maybe we will, who knows? Maybe we'll just get crazy. Usually, you know, the tortillas in Oaxaca are very thin, but memelas need to be a little thicker. You're not making a gordita by any means necessary. You're not making a gordita. It still has to be thin, but there's gotta be a little bit of bite to it. Also, here's a little trick for those making tortillas at home. I always like to peel, turn, and then re-peel here, and then turn again before I press it a second time. I think it just allows for the plastic to fall off a little bit easier. We drop it. We're gonna flip it. I think the secret to a great memela is that when we flip it, we start pinching it, and then you prepare right on the comal. Like, all the fat and all the cheese and all the salsa have to come together as one in this one pot. And then here's when I started doing the pinch. And here's when the art of the memela starts, and a lot of people are like, oh my God, it's so hot, what's happening? Another trick to do this at home, if you are not used to a hot pan, I'm lowering it because now we're gonna simmer all the toppings on top of it. You can also get a wet towel and then do the same thing. I didn't bring asiento with me today from the restaurant, but a great substitute for asiento is a little duck fat, because I mean, it's duck fat, and who doesn't like that? All the fat is going inside the masa. It is perfectness. We drop the salsa. The salsa we're incorporated into the fat and into, you hear that? And then we layer the Oaxaca cheese on top, and this Oaxaca cheese will melt and will all come together. And this is the most simple thing that you could ever make for breakfast, but the most delicious. I want the cheese to melt into the fat. I want the cheese to melt into the sauce. And I want my memela to be nice and crispy, but still bite to it. That's how I like the memela. You start getting like that nice brown, and then you can kind of hear a little bit of the crisp. When I was writing my first book, when I was writing Oaxaca, my editor said something that really stayed with me. You know, we were talking about the pantry section of the book, the conversation of, should I add substitutes? Like, if you can't find this, find that. And she said, no, don't do that, because eventually all of this is going to be normal. You should encourage people to get the real thing. And in 10 years, this will be a normal thing to find. And that really stuck with me, because I thought, that's right, at some point no one had soy sauce in their pantry. At some point no one had chili crisp, or at some point none of this stuff was normal. I'm gonna go in with the beans. You just wanna have a little like time in between too. You don't wanna hit it with the fat and the beans right away. You want the fat to kind of simmer through the masa. Salsa, always at the bottom, and then cheese on top. Because I want the salsa to like penetrate the masa. I want the salsa to really like cook itself a little bit. And if you put it on top, you really don't get that cooked sauce moment. Let's fry an egg and put one on the next one. I love like that Thai immigrant egg. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's like super crispy on the outside, just kiss it on one side. It's still runny, but not too runny. This is gonna be an extra luxurious egg because it's cooked in duck fat. And then when do you know to turn? So in a tortilla, you'll see it'll start sort of like lifting on the side, just like a tad bit, and that's when she's telling you she's ready to be flipped. But see how these have been holding here and the cheese already, it's not fully melted, but it's settled down into the sauce. That, my friends, is a Oaxacan memela. Now, I mean, if you want to get fancy, right, we can like garnish it maybe a little bit with a few like beautiful radishes. Maybe we add some like nice cilantro on top if you just want it like extra spicy or whatever. There's no rules here. That's an egg my son won't send back. And here you have your beautiful memela breakfast. Bringing new flavors to people's palates is a lot more important because I don't want a second, third generation Mexican American to miss out on the flavors of their ancestors just because they think it's hard. That's not how it's gonna go down. Like I want people to experience them. I want people to fall in love with the flavors and eventually learn to make it themselves. But I think getting those flavors out is just quintessential to preserving our culture for sure.